Ladies and gentlemen, Kuro Games is back at it again, but unfortunately, this time it isn't going to be 3.0 news, it isn't going to be news about Lahai Roy, it's actually going to be news about what we have coming up in 2.8. Yes, you guys might have actually forgotten that this unit is going to be available, but she will be running for the first time ever on the reruns for this version with Ferlova and Cantarella. It's none other than Buling, and we've got the full kit reveal for this new 4-star unit that's going to be arriving in just a few days. And I've already taken a preview at some of the things that she's capable of, and I'm going to be honest, she might actually be useful. So let's go ahead, let's start breaking all of this down and start by taking a look at every single thing piece by piece. Started off with none other than, let me just make my camera a little bit smaller so that, you know, you guys don't have to zoom in too much. Starting off with some of her requirements. So we all know that she's going to be an electro rectifier sort of character. And when it comes to her Resonator Ascension material, she's going to be using the Blighted Crown of the Puppet King, basically the False Sovereign boss in 2.6. Peacock Flowers from Jinzhou, then Whispering Cores. Everyone knows how to get those. And then upgrade material. She's going to be using the Threnodian Fleur-de-Lis weekly boss mat, so do keep that in mind. You're going to need the newest ones that we have available and Lento Helixes. So nothing too crazy over here. Now let's go ahead and take a look at something very, very, very interesting, and that's going to be her combat roles. And I feel like this is the thing over here that's going to tell us quite a bit about what to expect for this character in the future. She might have a decent bit of meta relevance in the present, but her value might actually be expected to grow with more 3.0 units. And that's because she's a support and a healer. She's also a damage amplifier. She also increases resonance skill damage. And then she also, and this is the last thing on top, might have not even been necessary in her kit, but it's there. She also applies Electro Flare, a negative status. The first actual Electro Flare negative status applier in the game. So that's a lot at a surface level. Now let's start breaking it down and start taking a deeper look at her kit. All right, so now we've got her normal attack, and this one's actually a little bit complex, but gets a lot simpler to understand. So her regular normal attack just deals damage. But what Buling also has is a bunch of different, and we're just going to zoom in over here so y'all can see it. She has a bunch of different types of heavy attacks. And the way that she accesses these different types of heavy attacks is very simple. Basically, she has two resources, a Thunder token and a Mountain token. And whenever order she receives the tokens in and the types of tokens that she receives, basically will result in a different type of heavy attack. And you can see over here, when she does the second stage of her basic, she gets a Mounted one. When she does the fourth stage of her basic, or a plunge attack, she gets her Thunder one. And she also gets her Thunder one when she uses her Resonance skill. And so the idea is if she goes Mountain, then Thunder, she'll deal damage with her heavy attack. That's pretty much it. But if she has Thunder over Mountain, she'll deal a little bit of damage to them, but then reduce their vibration strength more. And then when she's double Mountain, she just heals everybody on the team. And then when she's double Thunder, she continuously applies like AoE, not damage over time, but like healing over time to everybody on the team. So you can see over here, she's got 4 different types of heavy attacks, basically contingent on the order and the amount of different trigrams or tokens that you built up using these other attacks in a rotation. Pretty actually really simple to understand, and it's pretty cool. I actually have to say, this is one of the more interesting designs I've ever seen. Adds variation to the gameplay. Hopefully it's not too hard to actually execute on the field, right? Because there is like ordering and stuff put in. Maybe it can get a little bit complex, but maybe you know, it'll only take like a couple of practice rotations to get what's going on here. However, she does have a bit of a caveat in her kit. If you try using her heavy attack without having the appropriate number of trigrams, she will actually fail the divination and then hurt herself and CC herself. So I think there's actually an animation for it over here where she like messes up. These are all the different attacks that she can do. I think there's an animation where she messes up because she doesn't, yeah, right, yeah, she literally like a bolt of thunder comes down and like zaps her and she looks like she's in a cartoon. So make sure you don't try to use her heavy attack unless you built up the trigrams first, unless you're trying to trigger this attack. But yeah, that's not going to help you clear. Anyways, that's going to be her basic attack and her heavy attack. You can see over here a lot of variation. We'll be able to see a more detailed breakdown of this ability later on. This is actually the simplified kit overview, but it's still pretty wordy. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the resonance skill. So this one's gonna be pretty simple. Attack the target, dealing electro damage, and continuously pull them in. This is actually really great. She deals damage and then also applies continuous CC. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she's got grouping, and she's also got healing, and then she's got damage amplification and all that other stuff. This at a baseline should actually give her a very, very, very powerful use case in a certain game mode, right? Whimpering Waste. And the funniest thing about this is because Buling actually buffs resonance skill damage. Some of her best potential teammates, just my take at a baseline, will be Carlotta and Jancy, right? And the funny thing about Carlotta and Jancy is that they're both resonance skill damage dealers, but they both also have very, very bad AoE. Extremely bad AoE relative to other characters. And so, having a grouper on their team that can also buff their main damage type, shit, that's pretty good, man. So, yeah, her having this grouping ability, baseline in her kit, just on a regular resonance skill, awesome stuff, great to see, should spell out a potentially useful unit. It's also going to give her a Trigram Thunder token as well. So just something to think about when it comes to that resonance skill cast. But other than that, it's a very, very simple one. I'm actually glad it looks this simple. Something about Wuthering Waves, at least with some of the recent kit designs, has me thinking that like having like these more simple utility-based characters isn't necessarily the worst thing ever. I like seeing units like this that aren't doing a whole lot. It's a powerful tool built into her kit, but it's not like it's out here doing like a bunch of extra shit on top of it, right? There's no like secondary cast or any of that. All right, now we got our Resonance Liberation, and this one's gonna be pretty simple as well. It's just gonna attack the target and deal electro damage. I think this ability also applies Electro Flare, but we'll be able to see full details on that later on the more detailed kit overview. So yeah, like I said before, some of these abilities are a bit more wordy. Some of them are just a single sentence. Now we got her forte. And this is going to be one of those abilities that's actually a lot more wordy. So, Thunder begets life. Yin-Yang balance. When Buling obtains a minor yin and a minor yang, she enters the yin-yang balance state, replacing her resonance liberation with another one. The regular one is called Flashing Thunder Spell. Then she gets Flashing Thunder Spell Harmony. So, you can see over here, she's shooting a big one this time. So what this ability does is it attacks the target, deals electro damage, and then generates a 5 Thunders spell array at the target area. The array continuously deals electro damage and then inflicts electro flare on everybody in it. And when that array is active, all the resonators in the team enter the primordial chi state. And while in that state, anytime somebody uses an intro skill, kind of a little bit like Shorekeeper Stellar Realm or Lupa's Pack Hunt, think about it that way, Thunderspell Primordial Key becomes Yin and Yang. And so, essentially, she opens up this field after using this second Liberation cast, and once an intro skill in that field is used, Yin and Yang grants resonance skill damage bonus to the active resonator in the team. And when any resonator in the team casts an intro skill again during this time, Yin and Yang becomes Heaven, Earth, and Mind. And then Heaven, Earth, and Mind grants even more resonance skill damage. So the idea is basically functioning identically the same as Shorekeeper Stellar Realm, but it's a little bit different. Shorekeeper Stellar Realm essentially opens up on her liberation. And then when you use the first intro skill, you grant crit rate to your team. Then when the second intro skill is used, you grant crit damage to the team. When Buling opens up the field, you have no bonus, right? And then when the first intro skill is used, grant a resonance skill damage bonus to the incoming character. Then when the second intro skill is used, that resonance skill damage bonus increases even more. So the idea is that you want Buling to be first in the team's rotation, much like Shorekeeper. Then you have the sub DPS go in. They bump up her damage ramp to 1. Then the DPS, like your Jincy or your Carlotta, then goes in, and then they get the fully ramped up, fully buffed up effect. So yeah. Actually, a very simple kit at a baseline, very easy to understand, and when you know that this character is from the Black Shores, I do find it pretty appropriate that they have a buffing system, right? They have like an intro system, stuff like that, that's so similar to Shorekeeper, who's kind of like our representative of the Black Shores, right? So that's pretty cool. So how do you get this minor yin and how do you get this minor yang, right? This is what you need to do to access this big attack and then open up the field. Minor yang is obtained after using Mountain over Thunder or Thunder over Mountain. And then minor yin is obtained after casting Twin Mountains or Twin Thunders. So you're probably seeing how our kit is starting to function over here. You got to build up your trigrams, right? Then you got to get a mountain over thunder, or a thunder over mountain, and then a twin mountain or a twin thunder. That'll give you the yin and then the yang. And then once you get the yin and then you get the yang, right, you'll be able to use that enhanced liberation, then start casting the intro skills and outro skills across your team, and then start building up that buff. And naturally, right, you'll have things like your resonance skill to go ahead and give you those trigrams that you can use to start casting those abilities. You have your basic attacks as well, and then you got our baseline liberation to just deal damage to them. So overall, I would say it's a pretty nice looking kit. However, we're still not done with it yet. Let's keep reading. Intro skill. Summon and Smite. Attack the target, dealing electro damage and healing all nearby resonators in the team. So yeah, just a very simple attack and then heal. Might actually be one of the few intro skills in the game that do heal. I think Shorekeeper has one as well. Next, we got our outro skill. Heal the active resonator in the team by 18% of Buling's attack per second for 16 seconds. All nearby resonators in the team have their damage amplified by 15% for 30 seconds. So that's something that's pretty damn cool as well, ladies and gentlemen. She's got the same damage amplification as a Shorekeeper with that nice 15% over there, and she's got the same damage amplification as a Verita, which is what you can see over there. And the nice thing is that her damage amp is actually better than Baija's as well. She directly power creeps Baija's amp by 1,000,000%. Baija technically heals more, but her amp is like more readily available and it applies to the entire team. Baija actually only applies it to one character at a time, which is one of her issues in a Jeja Carlotta team. Because then Jeja doesn't get the buffs. So it's like Buling just has a really, really strong looking kit as far as I'm seeing. Now I just want to see the numbers. Unfortunately though, we're not going to get a full preview of the numbers yet, but we do have our combat guide. And holy moly, those ones kind of long. Heal and grant damage bonus to resonators in the team. Resonance Liberation continually stacks Electro Flare. When Liberation is active, any resonator in the team casting intro skills grants resonance skill damage buffs to resonators in the team. Makes sense. And then the whole like trigram stuff, it just breaks into some of the mechanics of her kit. We already talked about it. Build up trigrams. Get your yin, get your yang by using the various heavy attacks, then shoot off your big gun and then start intro skilling across your team. It's pretty easy. However, we still got to go take a look at the details kit overview. So let's start breaking that down. So this is where we're going to get a little bit wordy with it. So her basic attack is just going to be perform up to 4 consecutive attacks dealing electro damage. We all know that various stages of those attacks give different types of trigrams. It's just going to be hold normal attack to consume the highlighted trigrams and then cast all the different ones. We all know they either deal damage over here with mountain over thunder. Thunder over mountain deals less damage but focuses more on the break bar, the vibration strength. Twin mountains just heals, and then twin thunders continuously heals everybody on the team, right? Very, very slight differentiations between all of them. I don't think it functionally matters too much, as long as you do one of these attacks and then one of these attacks. I don't really think it's gonna be that big of a deal. Then she's gonna have her mid-air attack as well, and then she's also gonna have the attack where she literally hurts herself. She's going to have a dodge counter as well that's going to advance her basic attack to stage 3. It can also be very helpful as well because it will advance you to stage 4 if you do another follow-up. And we all know to get a Trigram Thunder, you need to do basic attack stage 4. She's also got Mountain on basic attack stage 2. So I guess the idea is that you're going to hold some Trigrams. She can hold up to 4 of them. That's good to know. And when trigrams reach their max number, getting new trigrams is going to move them all down 1. So the idea is you're probably going to intro in, build up 4 trigrams, and then, well, just cast them, right? That's what I would assume would happen. And you're probably going to want to do something along the lines of a, like, I would think a mountain over thunder into like a double thunder or something like that makes the most sense because your resonance skill gives you a thunder stack. But we'll figure out a rotation when she actually does release. This might look a little bit more complicated than she's actually going to play. Once you figure out an order to like do these attacks and get the right trigrams, I don't think it's going to be difficult at all. Next, her resonance skill. It just, again, attacks the target and then pulls everybody in. And then after using a resonance skill, you can press the normal attack button to perform basic attack stage 4. So remember what I just said about being able to figure out a rotation? Basically, if you do her resonance skill into a basic attack, that will immediately give you 2 thunder trigrams. So what you're probably going to want to do is intro skill in, complete a basic attack chain, because that will give you a mountain, then a thunder. You now have 2 trigrams. Then you're going to skill and then basic attack again, and you have 4. It'll be mountain, then thunder, and then thunder again. And then you'll have your yin and yang that you need because you did a mountain over thunder, and then you did a twin thunders. And now you have both the yin and then you have the yang as well. Not really that. You could probably already see, okay, it's actually a lot easier than we thought. Her intro skill is probably also going to advance her. Oh, it doesn't advance her into her attack chain, but you only need to do 1 basic attack chain. So yeah, very, 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 once again, seems like a pretty easy to use kit, and seems like it should have a fast rotation as well. Intro in, do a basic attack chain. Since the basic attack chain is a 1 to 4 attack chain, you'll get the mountain, then the thunder, then your resident skill, gain another thunder, and then basic attack stage 4 after the resident skill to get your 3rd thunder. Easy. So now let's take a look at her Resonance Liberation. This is the detailed version of it. So yeah, her baseline Resonance Liberation is like not actually really even an ability, right? I guess you can just use it, but all it will literally deal is damage. And it's probably just going to be used for Concerto, because as you can see, it's not really meant to be a feature-rich ability. However, Forte Circuit, and again, this is where you get the upgraded version of the ultimate. Like I said before, you need the yin and the yang to be able to use this ability. We already talked about how you get the yin and the yang. To basically get that, you need to cast one of her damaging heavy attacks and then one of her healing heavy attacks. And the rotation that we talked about before, where you get mountain over thunder and then double thunder, it will do exactly that. So yeah, once again, hopefully you're seeing how everything in this kit seems to be working together pretty damn well. Makes a lot of sense, and you can already see just from like the kit descriptions and with how it's like this kit is like a blend of like simplicity and complexity in a very cool way. That's the way that I'll describe it. So let's go read the detailed look at this over here. So we basically already know how her liberation works. It's going to deal damage and apply electro flare to everybody in the array. It's basically going to apply 2 stacks every 2 seconds, lasting for 24 seconds. That's 12 stacks on a support. That seems... Oh, sorry. No, that's not 12 stacks. That's 24 stacks of electro flare on a support, which to me sounds insane because the cap of electro flare is 20. Guys, electro flare has a 20 stat cap. 10 on electro flare and 10 on electro rage. And this 4-star unit applies 24 stacks on one ability. This tells me that they might be dramatically reworking their philosophy when it comes to negative statuses, 4-star units, stuff like that. Because that seems like 5-star levels of application to me. However, the monkey's paw can still hypothetically curl here. This could just mean that Buling applies the least electro flare in the game. And it could theoretically be that electro flare is meant to be a debuff that gets consumed repeatedly in a rotation, and she actually applies some of the least of it in the game. That could be the monkey's paw situation over here. So I think I first need to see A, how much damage is electro flare doing? B, what's the first electro flare DPS going to look like? And how is Buling going to interact with that stack management in the future? Because like I said before, it's got a stack limit of 20 at a baseline. It's 26 with Chisa because she raises stack limit by 3. Electro Flare has a base cap of 10. Chisa then goes in. She raises that to 13. And then Electro Rage also has a 10 stack limit, and she raises that to 13 as well. So it's like, man, that looks very, very, very interesting, but we're just going to have to see how she fits into the ecosystem later on. All right. Now let's look into the exact numbers regarding her outro buffs, right? Her field that she makes. So, Yin and Yang, the first outro buff that's used, it's going to grant a 10% resonant skill damage bonus. Not that crazy. Not that impressive. The second one used, though, gives a 25%. Now we're talking a little bit. That's pretty damn solid over there. I'm imagining that her buffing abilities, as she gets more sequence nodes, are going to be a lot higher. I'm not going to go ahead and say that 15% amp and 25% resonance skill damage is the most broken, overpowered shit ever, and that everyone should be prioritizing her. But depending on how strong her sequence nodes are, she could actually be a very, very, very insane unit. Because the idea is, right, is that, hey, hypothetically, right, S6s for 4 stars have been hit or miss, but we've had some very, very, very good ones, right? We've had some broken S6s relatively on 4-star characters. Something like 20% attack to the entire team on top of her existing buffs. That would be insane. However, it could also just buff her existing capabilities in her kit. We'll just have to see, but I would say, considering that this is an S0 kit, an S0 kit, I'm going to be honest, this is one of the better S0 kits I've seen in the game. One of the best ones, actually. Potentially one of the best S0 kits. But we'll just have to see how long a rotation on field takes. Stuff like that. Because there's a lot of kits that look good on paper. Then in practice, you're like, oh. Example, Zani. Anyways, we already looked over how you accumulate and spend minor yin and minor yang. No real need to look at it further over here. Now let's take a look at the intro skill. Okay, we're done with the intro skill. Now let's take a look at the outro skill. Now we're done with the outro skill. They're both exactly the same as the ones that we saw before, so no real need to expand on them further over here. Now let's look at her inherent skills. First one is, Buling Grant gains a 25% healing bonus when restoring HP for Resonators with less than 50%. This is pretty dog shit, as you can reasonably understand. I think healing bonus is literally the most useless stat in the game, and I really do honestly think that Kuro should look into adding a character that consumes their HP and then converts the consumed HP like into damage or something. Because right now, the idea of healing is just, I'd like to see there be like an offensive use case for healing. Let's say that. Because right now, healing is just like, it implies that you got hit, and getting hit in this game is a massive DPS loss. So like needing healing in the first place is inherently like a DPS loss. But like I would love to see like some sort of character that can, I don't know, make like healing feel offensive. You also got budget SK emergency heals like KO prevention. That's only good because like SK, her revive gives you hyper armor. So like you can use it offensively. But that's once every 10 minutes. So it's like stuff like that where I'm just like, this feels like the most useless. Basically, what I'm trying to get to, this feels like the most useless inherent I've ever seen in the fucking game. That's the main point that I'm trying to get to, because it's like, if you're at any point using this, that means that your clear has probably already gone horrifically wrong. It's like Hu Tao's C6. Hu Tao in Genshin Impact, right? Her C6 only works if you die. So like, oh, are you trying to tell me to do something, Hoyoverse? Like, like, second inherent skill. Earthly Immortal is here. Targets damaged by intro skill Summon and Smite obtain 4 stacks of Electro Flare. So, remember what I said before, ladies and gentlemen, about it being a little bit obscene? That she can apply 24 stacks of Electro Flare? Well, that's actually misinformation. She applies 28 stacks. So, this one character seemingly applies enough Electro Flare as a support to cap out Chisa's full limit of 26 stacks. She does 2 overcapped to 28. And I'm going to be real over here. That sounds insane, especially when you factor in that, like, Phoebe doesn't even fully fill up Zani's Blaze Bar. Which is, like, confusing once you think about it. Phoebe only fills up, like, 19 out of Zani's 20 stacks. And Buling does 28 of Chisa's 26. I am now intrigued by what the hell they have planned for Electro Flare moving forward. Like, what could they possibly be doing with this where the support unit applies over 28 stacks? Guys, like, Spectro Rover is like the support unit for Frazzle, and Spectro Rover applies, I guess they can apply 14, but I mean, I don't know, bro. We'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. I'm just gonna be real. I am wondering what the hell they plan for this character in 3.0 and onward, because her Electro Flare capabilities seem absolutely insane. And I think the part that seems to be really throwing me off with this kit design is the fact that she seems to have all of this latent 3.0 potential that's waiting to get tapped into. But she also has some very, very, very viable use cases already on the existing roster. While unfortunately she doesn't have a massive number of them, with their selection mainly being Carlotta, Jinsey, and then oddly enough, the character that she's on banner with, Frolova, yeah, she doesn't really have other teammates. So she kind of only has 3 in the game, which is not the worst thing ever, but I think that these are going to be the only 3 characters you would potentially ever think about using Buling with. I think in every other situation, Verena or Shorekeeper's just going to be better. But I think that this is a good role for a 4-star character. And that's what we gotta realize. She's gonna be a 4-star unit. And so I think her being a best in slot is actually kind of nice. But she's a 4-star unit. So I think it's okay if she's not a best in slot on every single team. But on two or 3 of them, mainly more like 2, potentially maybe more like 1, I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think it's fine. And the thing is, at least she's close to a best in slot. Because we all remember, right? This is a character whose value looks like it's going to grow over time. Remember these two? Bro, the game would be better if these characters never got added in. That's the honest truth of the matter. The game, Wuthering Waves, would have 4.7 stars instead of 4.6 if these 2 units never got added to the game. They're so bad, it's unbelievable. They have never had a single shred of meta relevance outside of Yohu with 1 build that can, like, abuse the Plunderer's token, but, like, you could replace Yohu with any character and the team would work still. So it's like, I'm just glad they didn't repeat the mistakes that they did with these 2 units, where this character generates Concerto so fucking slow, she makes Yan Wu look like a viable unit. And then this character buffs coordinated attacks, which deal absolutely no damage in any context in any game mode. Anyways, at least she does something useful. And you know that her kit is functional at S0. Let's just hope that her Concerto gains aren't anything too awful. But if her Concerto energy generation is actually awful and it takes her forever to get through and, you know, generate all the resources, well then guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You got the best tool ever right here. Just go fucking use variation on her, right? And that's the nice part, right? That's the nice part about a character being a rectifier user. Yep, you can just put fucking variation on her. So yeah, that's gonna be the Buling kit overview. I'm going to be honest, I am absolutely baffled at what this character does. While I don't think she's gonna be a bombshell release at the start that's gonna, like, shake up the meta completely, I think she's actually a good addition to the game. And we've needed a 4-star addition for a very long time. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.